it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So before I get into the nitty-gritty, who's here for the first time today? Oh my gosh. Welcome and thank you. The first thing I want to tell you is I can give you one guarantee, and that guarantee is that Tulsi will listen to you if you have a question. She'll listen to you with an open mind and give you respect. So please do the same for her, whether it's a debate back and forth. She will respect what you're saying, respect what she's saying. She's not going to dismiss you and tell you to go vote for another candidate. She's not going to stand up here and freeze and you'd be saved. So just be aware of that. So a little bit about myself and my commitment to Tulsi. So I was on vacation with my family back in July or August. This thing was the second debate. And we had just done a whole day of events and activities, and I was sitting there and we're all exhausted. And we're like, let's watch the debate. And I'm like, I hate politics, I can't stand it. I've begrudgingly voted since 1992, but I've never gotten excited about anybody in my life. And I'm watching that debate, and all of a sudden, there's this woman from Hawaii who lays this smackdown on Kamala Harris, and I'm like, who is this chick? Like, I need to know more. So I start digging in, looking up all kinds of information, and like, oh, she's always on Fox News and this and that. I'm like, that's a bad thing. Why? And I'm like, she meeting with controversial leaders. I'm like, that's bad. Why? Like, this is what we're talking about, reaching across both parties. And you can't do that if you don't talk to them. So for me, that gained a lot of respect. And I was all in at that point. So I went to her first town hall, one of them in Nashville, New Hampshire, a church. And I asked, what can I do? How can I help you? I'm like, well, we're looking for people to do house parties. I'm like, parties? I love parties. I'm in. Next thing I know, there's 150 people in my house. And we had only planned on having them in the dining room, and they were filtered over into the den and the living room, and it was amazing. And I felt really happy because I felt somewhat responsible because I advertised the event. And at that point, my husband will tell you, when I'm in, I'm all in, I'm committed. I kind of go a little bit too far sometimes. So I was like, well, what's next? So we had like other ideas for events and what we can do and how we can raise a platform and awareness. And Tulsi called me brilliant. And I was like, oh my God, this woman's calling me brilliant? Like, she's freaking brilliant. And I'm like, I just felt so good about that, and that she just listened to my ideas. The fact that she liked them was almost irrelevant. I just really liked that she listened to what I had to say. So I want to thank you guys all for coming here. And one thing I want to say, Tulsi, I know you can hear me back there. I want to say thank you so much for waking me up, motivating me, inspiring me, and oh my God, I'm getting teary-eyed about it. That's how you know it's true. I really want to thank you for fighting for us and for all the people. She doesn't put herself through this because she loves being attacked. She does this because she's fighting for all of you and all of us. Tulsi, come on out here.
Hello, everybody. How you doing? Nice to meet you. Hey, good to see you. Thanks for coming. How are you? Nice to see you. Thank you so much. Good to see you guys. Thanks for coming. Nice to see you. Thank you so much.
Great to see you. You too. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Now win this thing.
Thank you. I need the mic. I need the mic. Sorry. They won't be able to hear me. Can we give Matt a round of applause, please? Thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate it. I want to say thanks to St. Anselm for hosting us all here today. And I want to say thanks to one of our volunteers, Rob. Where's Rob? Is he here? He's probably still working outside. Rob was really helpful in putting this together here today. Showed up at noon to start setting up the chairs. And with Rob, I want to say thanks to all of our volunteers who you'll meet here today, who are working incredibly hard to get our message out in this campaign. I think Matt talked a little bit in his introduction about how frustrating our political atmosphere is and how unfortunately divided our country has become. I'm here today to invite every single one of you to join me, to join our movement in ushering in a future where every single American is treated with respect. a future full of peace, national security, human dignity, and equality and justice for all. This is what our campaign is about, and this is the movement that we are building so that we together, standing side by side, working side by side as Americans, can make this future our reality. You know, when our founders were building the foundation for this country, what they envisioned for us was a government led by people whose sole commitment was to serve the people. A government of, by, and for the people. How many of you feel here today that this is the government that we have? That's exactly right. Instead, what we have is a government of, by, and for the rich and powerful, a government of, by, and for self-serving politicians. And what we have as a result, unfortunately, is we, the people, get left behind, which is so disheartening given our founders very intentionally made those first three words of our Constitution, we, the people, because we, the people, should always come first. We, the people, are the ones who our government should be focused solely on figuring out how do we solve problems, how do we improve the quality of life, how do we ensure that every family in this country has peace of mind to pursue whatever your dreams or hopes or opportunities are. We have a White House that unfortunately is perpetuating darkness and divisiveness. So what we need to do is to bring about this reality that our founders had for us. You know, I look back to the experience that I've had throughout my time serving in the military. April makes my 17-year anniversary. But one of the first things that I just really experienced at a deeply personal level when I first shipped out to basic training in South Carolina, you know, I came from Hawaii. We're the most diverse state in the nation. And, you know, we're out in our island chain in the middle of the Pacific. And I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and immediately I'm standing, I'll never forget, the very first day, we're in a big, huge open bay in a room not unlike this. And we were doing what the drill sergeants called toe the line. The drill sergeants walk in. How many of you have served in the military? Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about, right? And the drill sergeants come in, you toe the line, and you've got all these people from all over the country standing side by side in the position of attention. There's no kidding, a line painted on the ground for those who didn't know what toe the line meant, literally toes on the line. And I just remember looking around that room and seeing America. People from all different ages, ethnicities, religions, backgrounds, all different walks of life coming together, standing shoulder to shoulder, proud, standing as one, each of us committed to that very same mission of service. That mission of service to our country. All of the things that these days are so often used to divide us, the color of our skin, the way we worship, or if we worship, or how much or how little money we make, what kind of education we may have, all of these things that are putting us into these little boxes that are separating us as Americans, all of that stuff goes away because we are standing there as fellow Americans, single-pointedly focused on that mission of service. This is the spirit of leadership that I will bring to the White House as your president, putting service above self. And you have my personal commitment that I will treat every single American, every one of you, with respect, with care, and with compassion, regardless of race, religion, ethnicity, orientation, all of these different things, recognizing that united we stand, divided we fall. Really taking to heart those words that we just shared in the Pledge of Allegiance. These are words we say over and over again throughout our lives, and sometimes they can become easy to just repeat without really thinking about them, but Gosh, they're so powerful and so necessary of a reminder given the challenges and obstacles we are facing now, that we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the challenge that we have before us, to build those bridges, to cross those divides, to stand together and come together, treating each other as fellow Americans with respect, so that we can begin to have the kinds of dialogue and conversation necessary to bring about that future for ourselves, for our kids, their kids, for generations to come. That bright future that guarantees freedom and equality and justice and peace and security for every single American. Now, some critics may say, okay, yeah, Tulsi, that sounds fine, and you can talk about peace and coming together, and those are all just words. What does that mean at a practical level, given every time you turn on cable news or you flip through Twitter or you scroll through social media, you maybe hear some of the conversations that some of you might have had around the dinner table on Thanksgiving. It's easier said than done, right? But it begins with a very simple, both concept turned into action, treating each other with respect. This is something that I found that I had to figure out in a very practical way how to do when I first got elected to Congress in 2012. I was coming in as a newly elected Democrat representing my home state of Hawaii to a House of Representatives with a very strong Republican majority. Republicans held the majority for my first 6 years serving in Congress, but I knew right away coming in, was walking into a very hyper-partisan atmosphere, like I'm sure all of you feel now. I felt frustrated by the gridlock in Washington that has stood in the way of solving problems for too long. And I knew that going there, I didn't want to just be a part of the problem. I didn't want to just go there and just say, Republicans are in charge, so I guess I can't get anything done. That would go against the promise that I made to my constituents in Hawaii to serve them and to serve our country and to do all I could to help solve the problems that we're facing. So it began with me just thinking, all right, how do I start to build relationships? How do I start to get to know the other 434 members of Congress from all different parts of the country so I can start to establish those relationships based on respect? I started with the most universally recognized gesture and language that I believe there is, which is food. Yeah? Speak this language? Anybody here? Yeah? Yes? You do, yes? You look excited by that. So starting with that, I called my mother back in Hawaii, who makes the most incredible macadamia nut toffee in the world. And I asked her if she would make 434 boxes of this toffee for every single member of Congress. I excluded myself from the count. I didn't need the calories. But she said, gosh, honey, I think that's a great idea. Sure, I'd be happy to help. And I said, I got one more favor on top of that. I said, can you make another 435 bigger boxes of toffee for the staff of every member of Congress? She was thinking about how many more bags of Mac nuts she'd have to go and buy from Costco and all the things that would be required to make that much more, but she said, absolutely, I'm in. So while she was doing that, she's in Hawaii, she's stirring 2 pots, chopping the Mac nuts, pouring the toffee. My dad was the self-appointed quality control officer. He took 1 slice out of every single pan that she poured. I'm not even joking. I was in DC while they were doing this, just starting to handwrite notes to every one of my soon-to-be new friends in Congress, learning more about them, where they come from or what committees they're serving on, and just signing every note saying, I look forward to serving alongside you. What was incredible to me was how quickly I started to get a response. We started delivering these little gifts of aloha to the offices of every member of Congress. And when we went to the House floor for votes, which we do usually a couple times a day, it's the only time when we're all in the same space together, that some Republicans, chairmen of powerful committees, Started making that long walk from the Republican side of the floor to the Democratic side. Looking for me, finding me, and saying, God, thank you. I ate all the toffee. I need more to take home to my family this weekend, please. But then most importantly, saying, tell me what issues you're concerned about. What challenges are your constituents dealing with in Hawaii? I'm the chairman of this committee, or, I've been really the leader on this issue or that issue for a long time. Let's find ways to work together. This simple gesture of respect, of reaching out, without preconditions, without a purity test, without pre-vetting to say, well, I think you're good enough for me to work with, but no, I'm not going to talk to you. No, none of that. Reaching out with respect at a basic foundational level, saying, I see you, we are fellow Americans, and we have been sent here to do a job, to solve problems for the people of this country. Whether we agree on most things or we only agree on one thing, let's work together to get that job done. And it worked. The very first bill that I introduced into Congress, when professional politicos in Washington said, don't even try to pass legislation because they won't let you get it through, the very first bill that I introduced was passed through the House of Representatives, the Senate, and signed into law by President Obama within my first year in Congress. And when the time came when I was, introducing an amendment, let's say there was one to the education bill that many people said would be dead on arrival because the Republican majority had traditionally opposed other people's efforts to introduce this same legislation that would reauthorize the Native Hawaiian Education Act. I said, no, we gotta go for it. We gotta give it our best shot. There's a lot of kids who are counting on us. We introduced the amendment. It was scheduled to come to the floor for a vote. As expected, the Republican leadership put out a memo to all of their members saying, vote against the Gabbard amendment. But instead of it just dying a partisan death on the House floor, I started getting phone calls. I started texting my Republican friends, stopping them in the halls. They started asking me, hey, we were told to vote against your amendment. Tell me why I should vote for it. The door was open for me to be able to make the case for why this legislation was good for our children. I didn't get all of them. Some of them said, hey, I'd like to support you, but I can't do it on this one. Talk to me next time. But enough of them said, yes, I will stand with you. And we passed this amendment, something they said couldn't be done by an overwhelming majority. This happened because of those relationships that were established from the beginning, not in a transactional way, saying, I'm gonna come and use you for my own ends to help me in my political future. No, not at all. Let us work together, treat each other with respect to fulfill our mission of service to the American people in solving problems. This is the leadership that I will bring to you as your president. Where one of the first things that I'll do is invite the leaders of the House and the Senate, Democrat and Republican, to the White House to begin to establish this relationship based on respect, much like I did in the House of Representatives. I will be sure to ask my mother to make a large plate of the toffee for that meeting. But making this so that this is the norm, as you may or may not know now, it makes headlines, right? If the president invites leaders in Congress to the White House, it's a big deal, because it hardly ever happens. How terrible is that? That we have leaders in the executive branch and in Congress who aren't working together on a regular basis. Coming together, maybe having dinner, inviting their families over, getting on the phone. Hey, let's just talk about this stuff. Let's talk about this stuff. We all know people in our communities or in our states who are struggling because they can't get the health care they need. That their kids aren't able to get the medicine they need because they can't afford it. This is not a Republican problem or a Democrat problem. This is a challenge that's causing so many Americans to suffer and struggle. Let's come together and work this out. We have threats to our environment. Challenges. We have families in Flint, Michigan, who years after the breaking news was all over every channel and every newspaper about families in Flint being poisoned by water, they're still being poisoned today. That's not a Republican issue or a Democrat issue, and they are not the only ones